What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Just a Guy on My Lunch Break. I appreciate you joining me once again. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm working very, very hard. It helps the algorithm to really push my content. That's the main thing that I need for growth. So I would be very, very appreciative. Let's bring a little light into the room there. All right, so continuing to speak about Conor McGregor, we're going to take it a step further, okay? And we're going to talk about, in this video, is Conor going to be able to make a comeback? Where is this ultimately going to lead? And I personally believe that there is an X factor here that no one's really thinking about in regards to Conor McGregor. That X factor is drug use. That X factor is drug addiction, something that I know a little bit about, believe it or not. Also, I'm going to start this video by looking at one of the stupidest comments that I've ever heard in my life. You start to get a little notoriety on YouTube, you start to get a couple of thousand views, you start to get the riffraff flowing in. You start to get the stupidity flowing in. And I had somebody who is obviously from Ireland, which so far all of my interactions with you guys from Ireland has been wonderful. I want to say that right out of the gate. I've had some really good back and forth conversations with the people from Ireland, who obviously have a strong investment in this, with Conor being an Irishman, and I certainly understand that. But we're going to look at that comment, and we're going to break down how idiotic this comment is and how idiotic people can be no matter what country they're from. Let me tell you something. Stupidity knows no nationality. We got plenty of them here in America. You got plenty of them there in Ireland. I'm sure Africa's got, I'm sure Britain's got, I'm sure everyone has the stupid people. Here's one. I love all these American commentators who only know Conor for the American side of things and haven't an actual clue what he is like in real life in his own home country. I love America, but you guys need to wake up and smell the coffee before you comment on it. I didn't know there could be so many things wrong in two sentences, but there are. Okay, first off, I don't know what it's like to be an Irishman. I don't live in Ireland. I do know what it's like to be a man. I do know what it's like to struggle with drug addiction. So those two things, quite a bit in common with Conor. I don't know what it's like to be a super mega superstar, but let's get real. None of us do. You probably don't either. If you did, you probably wouldn't be here on my little bitty channel that's just now starting to grow, okay? So this is the equivalent of me saying, I love it when all these freaking Irish people start talking about LeBron James or Tom Brady. You don't have a freaking clue what he's like in America, in his home country. Wait, whoa. Okay, let me tell you what would be wrong with me saying that. Despite the fact that I'm from the same country as LeBron James, despite the fact that I'm from the same country as Tom Brady, I live 15 hours from Tom Brady, drive. I live 30 hours from LeBron James, who lives in Beverly Hills, clear on the other side of the country. Okay? I've never met either one of them in my whole life, so I have no clue any more than an Irish person what LeBron James does in his personal life on a daily basis, okay? So unless you personally run with Conor McGregor, or unless you personally see what he does in his life from day to day to day to day, and you cross paths with him on a regular basis, shut your dirty mouth, okay? Because you are subject to what is out in social media, what is said on the news and media outlets, just like I am here in America, okay? I don't know any more about LeBron James than you know about Conor McGregor. So let's get that clear. Now, if you're a person who runs in the same circles with Conor McGregor and you know him personally, then hell yeah, I'm honored. Hell, I've only got what, 1,200 subscribers now. My channel's tiny, so hell yeah, this is a breakthrough for me. Tell him I said what's up. In fact, I'd like to get him on here for an interview if you know him like that. Maybe bring some eyeballs to my channel. I've been taken up for Conor this whole time. I don't believe he's guilty of this. I believe the girl's lying, all these things. But moving on from that stupid comment, even though it was a stupid comment, either way, there are stupid people in the world. We all know that. And it picks no nationality. Okay. So, what I want to look at now is the X factor that I talked about that people seem to be leaving out of these conversations with Conor. And it is something that I know quite a lot about, and that is addiction. Okay. Conor's a drug addict, people. All right. And people have trouble looking at that, rectifying the fact that he is this world famous megastar with millions of dollars, and then also he's no different than the crackhead standing on the street as far as the way he uses substances. In fact, for him, it's probably a little bit worse because he has all of this money, because he has all of these resources. Okay. So for him, the drug addiction thing is going to be something that Conor has to deal with. All right. The foundation of his whole ability to be successful in this world hinges upon his ability to be able to get that drug addiction under control. Now, listen, I looked online. I was like, you know what? I'm going to show the people a couple of instances where, Conor was obviously on drugs. Okay. And as I started looking for that, there were so many clips. I was literally getting overwhelmed. I was like, I, I, I don't even know where to start. There's so many of Conor where he's obviously on something. So I picked the one that stood out most notable to me, and that was the Roadhouse interview that he had with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he was obviously off of his gourd. And being a person who's used quite a bit of substances in my time, I mean, this could have been a combination of being up for 36 hours, snorting cocaine, being on a 3-day bender. There could have been a little bit of prescription anti-anxiety medications in this one. It's just really hard to tell because the way he's speaking is just so like, so much like the opposite of what Conor's personality is usually like. Usually he's this really, wild, intense, and fighter, and blah, 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 In this particular interview, it was polar opposite, okay? And this wasn't I've been working really hard and I'm tired. He was obviously staggering over his words. Conor is known to be a very witty, like boom, 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 boom. When he was on it and he was on his prime in these press conferences, that's why no one could match him. Very well spoken, very witty, very quick comeback sort of person. And this was the polar opposite of that. So I'm going to watch that video, and this is going to be my undoubted proof that Conor is on drugs. All right, so let's check it out.
He's a consummate professional, 75 movies made. I'm blessed to have entered into the movie alongside him. He was patient with me. He gave me guidance, and I just took it. We had a good rapport on set. He has 75 movies made. I have 75 bar fights made. And that's it. We had a good back and forth.
All right. If you have two brain cells to rub together, which I do, I've still got at least two left after all the drug use. I've killed a few million, but I've grown some back in more recent years. Okay. So if you have even two brain cells to rub together and you have been anywhere and done anything in this world, you can close your eyes and listen and tell that this man is on probably a plethora of different substances right here. And you can see the look on Jake Gyllenhaal's face if you go to the actual interview where it shows Jake Gyllenhaal as well. Jake Gyllenhaal had this look of, fuck, we're fucked. I can't believe we're doing this. I can't believe we let this interview go ahead. We should have spotted this. This looks bad. This looks real bad. You could tell Jake just had that looking at the producers, I didn't know he was this fucked up. You could just tell, you know. Um, I mean, if you're even decent at reading body language, you can clearly look and see that he is on a cocktail of different things here. Every time that we see Conor in public, he he is either really, really hyped up and, his jaw's all tensed up and he's screaming and yelling, And I think for a long time in the early part of his career, we had this thing where it was like, oh, he's just playing that character. He's a UFC fighter. That's what he does. He's one of the best at promoting himself. That's just kind of his brand. That's his character. That's his heel character. That's just who he is. And I think that some of that was true, but I think in more recent years, since he's not been fighting, I think that it's become obvious that no, 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 no. I mean, that might be partly true, but this guy's really on some shit. He's really on some drugs, okay? And every time he gets seen out in public, he he's acting differently than he was the time before, okay? Now there's some similarities in terms of like the heightened intensity and things like that he projects, which I think is cocaine. I mean, everybody knows. Everybody knows at this point Conor McGregor's probably a cokehead. I hate to say that because I don't. It sounds derogatory, and I don't like to say that about people. But plus, I have a ton of respect for him as a fighter and what he's done with his career. So I hate to call him that, but you know, if it sounds like a chicken, if it walks like a chicken, it's probably a chicken. Let's get real, okay? And I've been around plenty of people on cocaine before. Been around plenty of people drinking before. Been around plenty of people on drugs before, okay? I've been on drugs before. So I might not be Irish, but I know what it's like to be a man, and I know what it's like to be on drugs. And so I can spot that sort of thing when it's going on. So yeah, when we look at Conor McGregor and whether he's going to be able to make a comeback, I think it is clear that he has to do A before he does B. A being he needs to get the foundation of his life in check, meaning he needs to get help. He needs to go to rehab. He needs to get help with his addiction so that he can then look to getting back in the ring, okay? Because or in the octagon rather. Well, it could be a ring. He did the boxing event with Mayweather, and him and Jake Paul are chattering at each other all the time. So I mean, you just never know. And then there's BKFC, supposedly part owner in that. You never know where he might end up in terms of fighting. But let's just, for argument's sake, say the octagon. If he wants to ever get back in the octagon, he needs to take care of this X factor first. Okay? First things first, because if you are in the throes of a drug addiction from a person who's been addicted, let me explain something to you. You are not a person who can use substances socially. You are not a person who can use them. I don't really feel like it today, so I'm not really going to use them today. No. You have no moderation. You have no ability to control that substance. The substances control you. You don't control the substances. And what's worse for Conor McGregor, he has endless resources, endless money, endless drug dealers, I'm sure, trying to stay in good with him, trying to make sure they hit him up every day, make sure that he's this, make sure that he's that. He has the money to keep them all well paid and rich. Okay, I mean, Conor McGregor's drug dealers are probably millionaires at this point, I'm sure. Like I said, I've been there. I have sympathy for someone like Conor who, I got to certain points with my drug use where I didn't have the resources to just continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I didn't have those kind of resources. I wasn't a rich, wealthy individual. Conor McGregor is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. There is no limit. There is no cap on how many drugs, how many different substances he can buy within a given day or given period of time. It is completely solely being left up to him. And on top of it, surrounded by tons of yes men, tons of people looking to just do whatever Conor might want in that given moment. No thought about his well being or no thought about how it might be affecting him in the future, long term future. None of that. And he's surrounded by people that are opportunists. Okay? They're social piranhas. They're taking little nibbles of this big prey, which is Conor McGregor, and they'll just continue to do that until he either spends all of his money, dies of a drug overdose, or hits some sort of complete rock bottom to where some intervention happens and his family or other people come in, or he just crawls into a hole and finally decides, I got to get help with this damn thing. I have no control over this. I'm not controlling these substances anymore. They are controlling me. And it is every bit in his erratic behavior. Okay? And when you see someone who has this sort of erratic behavior, they're here, then they're there, then they feel this way, and then they're that way, and he's having a conversation with you know, some DJ in Italy, and according to the DJ, it goes from an amicable conversation to all of a sudden McGregor just hits him. I mean, you're talking about erratic. You're talking about being on an emotional roller coaster, and I think Conor McGregor is hurting in ways right now that people are not giving him credit for because, he wants to remain this strong, facade for the people, right? He wants to keep this strong facade, this fighter. I'm just tough Irishman, very prideful. I don't need help. I write my own checks. I write my own way in this world. And I think that pride and that ego, and some people might call that like a God complex, that's hurting him here, okay? Because a drug addiction is one of the only things that a person must self-diagnose themselves, okay? 1 million people can stand and point at you all at one time and say, you're a drug addict. It's not going to make a difference in your world until you decide it, okay? Because if you don't decide it, you're just going to continue using as normal. And those substances are controlling him. He has no control over those substances. So I think that that's what we're seeing with Conor McGregor right now. We're looking at, this sexual assault, and he's getting in trouble for this, and he's getting in trouble for that. There is a root problem here that people are just skipping right over the top of. Oh, well, he's an asshole. Or he thinks he's a god. Or people get all this money. Money's the root of all evil, and now he just thinks blah, blah, blah. He don't care about anybody else. He's only concerned. People are skipping right over what the root of the problem really is for Conor McGregor. He's a drug addict. I know a drug addict when I've seen one. Conor is a drug addict, and the worst kind, a very rich, wealthy one. Okay? How's it going to end? How's it going to end for Conor? And I see all these headlines and how, Dana White and them are possibly making this move to get him back into the octagon at the end of next year. This huge explosion of Netflix doing live sports now with the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, which obviously, some people look at that, oh, that was a freaking tragedy. A lot of people was buffering and loading. That's minuscule compared to the amount of eyes and the amount of revenue that was generated by Netflix getting into the whole live sports thing. So you can best believe that they're already talking about doing more live sports, including NFL, football. Dana White is having conversations with Netflix about doing some huge, UFC events on Netflix and doing live streaming and stuff. The little buffering and a few loading issues that they had, that's not scaring Dana White. That's not scaring any more of the CEOs of these major sports promotional companies. They ain't scared. They're seeing dollar signs is what they're seeing, and they saw what kind of revenue Jake Paul and Mike Tyson generated. They're trying to get on that. They're trying to ride that train. Okay. And the thing is, I hear them talking about this and and a lot of people are saying, well, that's what he needs. That's all he needs. You know, the best way to combat this is for him to get back into the octagon and remind people of why they loved him in the first place, and show the people that he's still this guy who can stay focused long enough and train long enough to get back in there and have a good account of himself in the octagon, and that's going to make all this other stuff go away. Now listen, I don't disagree that the venom by which people feel about this whole sexual assault liability will not decrease over time. I used Mike Tyson as a perfect example of this in one of my other videos. A lot of people forget. A lot of people, this is before your time, but Mike Tyson was criminally found and convicted of grape. Probably it's like 20, 25 years ago. It's been a long time, right? He actually did time in prison. So this wasn't any, civil suit where they didn't see enough evidence. No, he was actually convicted of grape and actually did, I think, 2 years in federal prison due to it. When he stepped in the ring 2 weekends ago to fight Jake Paul, do you think anybody gave a shit about the time way back in the day that Mike Tyson was accused of grape and convicted and did time in prison? Nobody cared. Nobody cared. You know, the fans want to remember these athletes and these megastars for the good that they have contributed, right? At the end of the day, we don't want to remember the sexual assault or the time that he threw the dolly at the bus and slapped the guy in the pub. But we don't want to remember those things. We want to remember the time that he clipped Jose Aldo, one of the best UFC fighters ever, in 13 seconds and dropped him to win his second belt and to hold two belts at one time in the UFC. That's what we want to remember. That's what the fans want to remember. With that, fans have a short-term memory. They didn't care about what Mike Tyson got convicted of 30 years ago. He's still one of the world's most beloved athletes. Listen, Conor is not going to fall from that grace. There's going to be people that have their opinions or say this, that, or the third. I mean, that's just people have opinions like an asshole. Everyone has one, right? And that is a fact. People want to forget. People want to leave that in the past where it belongs. So I have no doubt that Conor can make a return, but Conor needs to get the foundation fixed before he starts putting up the framing here. Because since he's been out for the last few years, I believe that this drug addiction is getting worse. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. I think because he's had too much time on his hands, I think he's been using more. And I think it's just gotten to a point where he's going to have to get this monkey off of his back before he even thinks about getting back in the octagon with one of these killers. Okay? Because what we don't want to see is for him to get back in there after having, been on a 6-month cocaine bender and to get knocked out in 8 seconds. His legacy will be shot. And everyone will not be able to think about the way he came in as a featherweight and just fought his way directly to the top. The 50 G's, baby. People are not going to be able to think of those wonderful moments that he gave all of the fans and all of the world without also thinking about, yeah, but remember when he did this and he did that and he did all these drugs and he got convicted of sexual assault and then he came back after having done a 6-month bender of cocaine and he got knocked out in 8 seconds. Remember that? Yeah. Unfortunately, that's what happened last. So it's hard to look back to the things that happened before that, because to get back to the things that happened before that, you have to step over that one where he came back and he wasn't ready. And, the drugs had absolutely taken a toll on him. So I've been talking about this long enough, but this is something that I do know something about, okay? Drug addiction. I have no idea what it's like to be a world famous superstar like Conor McGregor, and I imagine that it would make being a drug addict way worse. Way worse. Okay. And so I definitely have sympathy for him in that way. But to be fair, he's his own man. It's his responsibility to get his life under control, and nobody's going to do it on his behalf. Matt Brown, who's a retired UFC fighter, he says the Notorious can still turn his life around. Conor is going to be in a shitstorm here. I don't think this is unsalvageable, but he has to be the one who salvages it. Neither Dana nor the UFC can pull Conor out of this sticky situation. But I will take that a step further. Conor McGregor has to pull himself out of this situation by getting help with what is causing all of his erratic behavior. That's all I got to say today. I'm going to bounce. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment down below if you enjoy this content. I will see you on the next one. Have a good day, guys. Peace.